Hello, everybody. Joe Bag of Donuts here. Welcome back for another episode of Mahoyo. A little late on this upload. Sorry about that. Got screwed over by work. If you saw the post I made, because YouTube allows, I think, anyone above 100 subscribers now to do community posts, which that's cool. That's neat. Because like I said, if there's ever a delay in the schedule, I'll try to let you guys know about it. But what can I do? Work screwed me over. It worked an extra day and a half. Yeah. My last 8-hour shift turned into a 13-hour shift, and then I had to work another shift on top of that to get ready for the holiday schedule because they somehow fucked over like half the people because they didn't know how to make the schedule. So they're just like, you guys will work some couple extra days and we'll give it to you on the back end somewhere else. And it's like, I highly doubt we'll get those days back, but sure, man, whatever you say. I'm just here so I don't go to jail. But last time, they tried to escape. Didn't work. Now they're going after Alice. And Alice is finding out about their plan. Let's get in there. I don't really have too much to say, other than it's real cold out, like real cold. It was like under 20 degrees last night, not including the wind. So I got my nice warm coffee. I'm in my nice fluffy robe, which keeps shocking me. By the way, static electricity is a bitch, especially because I have metal all over my desk from like all my little fucking knickknacks. I touch my mic stand, I get electrocuted. If I touch my microphone the wrong way, it shorts out and I just end up with a ee in my ears. And for some reason, my neighbor decided this is the perfect weather to go out and like, I don't even know what they're doing. They're like fucking fixing their fence or something. All I'm hearing is tok, 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 tok. Fucking them swinging away at something. I don't know, man. My neighbors are weird. Never actually talked to them. I think I like waved to my neighbor across the street when I moved in. But because I work such weird hours, I either arrive back home at like 7:45 in the morning or noon, go to sleep, wake up, it's midnight, and then I go to work. So I never see anybody at all. So they probably think I live in a fucking haunted house, or there's a haunted house on the street that I'm in. I'm the ghost. But yeah. Anyway, hopefully they don't get any noise complaints from me yelling to my microphone in the middle of the night recording videos. But fortunately, that won't be the case at this moment because it's in the I was about to say the afternoon, but it's not even 11 a.m. yet. But it's late at night for me. Anyway, I'm rambling. You guys don't want to hear me. You're here for the game. And I bumped up the text speed, so hopefully I'll stop like reading the sentence halfway and then like I'm caught up to the text and I just gotta wait for more words to come on screen and it leads to like weird sentence cadence. But there's gonna be tons of that anyway because I don't know how to read, so I'll hit words and then I'll stumble and I don't know how to say them or pronounce them or put the emphasis on the wrong syllables. It's kind of awkward here with no music going. Let's hope that kicks back on, huh? She was filled with foreboding at the Robins report. Apparently, they had gone in opposite directions. The park's residents had set off after the boy witness, and it would take them mere minutes to capture him, so the bird said.
どういうこと?追いかけているのは本当に彼。青子が変装しているのではなく。
I was about to say Alco would have some pretty broad shoulders, but Sojiro's kind of he's not really twink, he's just beanpole. The robin flapped its wings, chirping away any doubt. It had seen them with his own two eyes. Alco was headed for the plaza, and the cocky brat was making a run for the roller coaster.
青子が彼を見捨てた?そんな簡単なことならいいけど。
So just spilled some coffee all over my newly washed mouse pad. Fortunately, it's in the corner, so it's not that big a deal. The robin nodded enthusiastically. Didn't know about the other birds, but with superior night vision, it had seen that sucker clearly because he had moved to a high point.
ダンプティはなんて? 最後まで歌
Hell
わせ
yeah, just shake the bird PNG back and
こんな
forth.
褒め殺したい間抜けはまたとない。ですって。
Scratchy Dumpty was a ticking time bomb that would drop and detonate the moment its target averted its gaze. That is, as long as his target continued to observe him, in a way, he was a gentlemanly ploy kickshaw, though Alice wished he would forgo such niceties when in battle.
そうね。
And I wish my throat wouldn't just seize up on me when I'm
視線を切らない
talking.
だけでは ダンプティからは逃げられない。
That's a downside of it being winter and me having to keep the heater on 24/7 is the air in here is bone dry, and so is my throat.
彼がどこまで逃げようと、あと少しでダンプティが閉まってくれるわ。
Until the park, or rather the snark, was destroyed, Sojiro would not be able to escape. Which meant the larger concern was Aoko. Aoko had promised to protect the boy, which begged the question, where was she running to?
ここにいる限り、青子の動向はつかめない。
Alice looked over the park, ignoring the robin's attempt to get her attention with its plumage. Plumage? I think it's plumage. Or is it plumage? I don't know. Flat Snark had nearly reached its full size. It was a different breed of beast compared to the other cheap ploys. To her, it was one of her 3 most irreplaceable and precious familiars.
そうね。任せたわスナーク。青子が諦めない以上、あなたも手は抜かないで。
Alice remained where she was. With the same historic merit as the troll under the bridge and the poison-clawed serpent, Flat Snark was one of Alice's ultimate ploys. I'm unfamiliar with the poison-clawed reptile, but troll under the bridge is, an easy one. She was placing her trust in its reputation and ability.
でも忘れないで。これはゲームよ。勝敗がついたのなら、私のところに帰ってきて。
The drifting fog ignored its master's words. It was the one thing that Alice had misread. Flat Snark was a king, even among the other ploys, of terrible, vulgar antics. Death to the told me to tease. Death to the defeated. Gruesome tragedy to the vanquished. It found no pleasure unless it brought about total ruination of life and wealth. Sounds like my ex. The fog billowed with wicked laughter. Like wicked laughter. After all, only a king had the right to decide the fate of the vanquished, and the Snark's greed could not be contained. Thus, hadn't even the slightest intent to play fair, despite its master's orders. It seems like a bad trait for familiar. Ooh, don't like that on the screen. Over 100 feet high. One careful step at a time, the figure made its way gingerly up the track stretching into the heart of the amusement park. He stayed his beating chest and the pounding of his breath. Even tiny movements were an obstacle to his progress. Amazingly, the one making this pale-faced advance higher and higher was Sojiro... What? The one making this pale-faced advance higher and higher was Sojiro Suzuki. Okay. I was thinking of it like the one making him do it, not the one making is him. Far below, he saw a horde of bread creatures had congregated by the roller coaster's platform. As they bustled this way and that, their numbers continued to increase by the minute, seemingly cheering on Sojiro with raised arms as he made his ascent. Do a flip! Or jeered him more like, beckoning him to come down. Of course. Sojiro... Neither did Sojiro? I feel like it should just be neither did Sojiro. That's a typo. But its current state was the lesser of 2 evils. The only thing that followed him now was the floating egg. After heaving a huge sigh, Sojiro bent forward a bit and climbed the track that reached to the heavens. 150 feet now. If this were a skyscraper, he'd be on the 16th floor. A strong gust of wind whipped through his hair. Humans had an instinctual fear of heights. In particular, a place like this, which called forth visions of falling to one's death, would cause a person's knees to tremble against their will. It was an instinct that forewarned death, urging its master to return to the safety of the ground. It was a reasonable reaction. Climbing the roller coaster tracks went beyond funny stories and into the realm of fantasy. strong winds and change in air pressure were a hindrance. His instinct screamed at him to stop, causing his limbs to go numb, his muscles to go limp, and his mind to race. You wouldn't really feel much of a pressure difference over like 150 feet. I mean, the tower used to work in was 100 feet at the cab and like 115 if you're like standing on the roof of the cab, which only ever had to do to go up there to clean the snow off in the winter from the satellite dish so we could watch Jeopardy instead of, controlling air traffic. And also, things swayed around a lot at that height. Even when I'm like, on the rare occasion I have to go onto like the tail of an airplane, like all the way up at the very top of the vertical stabilizer, it bounces a lot in just like a little bit of a breeze. Like if you get seasick easy, you'd probably fucking lose your lunch. Not to mention if you, aren't a big fan of heights, the swaying and the heights and the bouncing around will make your knees buckle. Fortunately, I don't have that fear. Even if he'd been tied to a lifeline, a mere 15 feet of climbing would still have caused his thoughts to freeze out of sheer terror. And it would only get worse from here, exponentially so. Every foot forward increased the load on both his mind and his body by another degree. The burden on his mind notwithstanding, he carefully measured the toll on his body with every step. His legs, which had carried him running this far, threatened to buckle the moment he let down his guard. This fatigue was likely why Aoko had stressed that Sojourner's role was more dangerous than hers. Probably not. At least not to that extent. Sojourner laughed as he stared at the floating egg. He reflected on the course of events that had led to this absurd situation. Not even 10 minutes ago, they had been engaged in conversation. Sojourner felt a shudder travel down his spine at Aoko's smug grin. In hindsight, Aoko had been more than happy at this point to make him do something absurd. Sojourner had spoken up, figuring that what he was about to say was silly, especially considering Aoko had the magecraft to tear clean through the fence. Furthermore, up till now, he had not once offered his insight as to the true form of Flat's snark, only due to his belief that there was nothing they could have done about it, even if they were the wiser. But that had changed. For Aoko, the impossible was quite literally within her grasp. Despair filled Sojourner's eyes, and a sneeze fills the back of my nose. Oh, it went away. For now, anyway. Aoko lifted a hand to her long hair and, with magical energy in her fingertips, cut a clean tuft from her head. Gross. But based on where Aoko pointed her gaze, she did not really mean to leave it up to Sojourner to pick the highest place he could find. Aoko was staring conspicuously at one of the amusement park's two main attractions, the roller coaster. Nothing good from a plan comes from someone like that face. There were two demons in this park. Her smile made even Sojourner want to respond that it was far from perfect. Just chalk it up as an accident. Yeah, but not like indirectly like this. Getting a maneuver kill doesn't count. Sojourner hung his head. This was not sane. If he did as she said, he would die from exhaustion before Kitty even had a chance to eat him. It was the lightest of touches. close enough for their breath and skin to come in contact.
Oh.
Zaki, he finished with a hushed voice. For one of them, this was a rather mundane magecraft. For the other, it was a head-spinning sneak attack of intimacy.
軽く弱くうまく早くチクタクチクタク急げや急げ
Words that could not be produced by a normal larynx, carrying a peculiar weight to them, reverberated against his eardrums. I thought you were going to do like a fake magic charm, not like actual magic. If words were given color, these would have been the color of her name, blue. Sojiro's exhausted body and burning blood gently cooled. I will say, the visuals in this VM, real fucking good.
チクタクチクタク汽笛を鳴らせ星はいつでも北の空どこまでもいつまでも
Oh god, double text. Fly, swim, run, tick tock, tick tock, sound the alarm, the star is always in the north sky no matter where you go. In reality, it took but a few seconds. But the sudden contact had felt a little longer until it ended.
よし暗示成功成功したはずここまで手応えがあったの初めてだし
Mesmerize? You fucking hypnotized the guy?
アリスの小言もたまには役に立つじゃない
Also, thank God, noise suppression on my mic works. So you can't hear the hammering outside my windows. At least, I don't see it picking up on the waveform, so hopefully it's not on audio. A very merry Aoko stood aside, a very confused Sojiro. After he asked what the heck had occurred, she responded.
簡単な暗示よ一時的に恐怖心を消しておいたから高いところに登っても平気なはず
I mean, that also works without magic.
あの手の作業で一番足を引っ張るのは同様でしょ恐怖も何も感じなければ地上何メートルだろうと平均台とそう変わらないってわけ
I mean, some people that's hard anyway. You know, me with my fucking flat feet, my ankles point inward, which means I have innately bad balance. He seemed to get it. Actually, it all sounded like Greek to Sojiro, but he accepted it as an explanation of her strange actions. He arrived at the summit of the track. At a height of nearly 200 feet, Sojiro had a bird's eye view of the entire amusement park. He was able to spot Aoko's figure right away. In the plaza not so far from here, she seemed to be occupied with something conspicuous. Her surroundings lay still. The breadmen were busy trying to figure out how to reach Sojiro by trial and error from the roller coaster's entrance. They had over 300 feet of distance to cover.
汗をかくはずだ。こんなに移動したのか。
The strong winter gales quickly dried the sweat on his brow, but he was drenched underneath his shirt. Ah, yeah, that's the worst. I was like that the other night at work. I had to move around like fucking generator carts, and those things, when they're fully weighed, they easily weigh over a ton. And of course, I'm the only one out there, so I have to like rock it back and forth in order to get like the fuel in it to sway, to get the momentum to like get the wheels rolling. I was pretty sure I herniated something, but it seems to be fine. Who knows? Anyway, it's all service related, so I'll get fucking disability later, in a decade and a half. But it made the wind awful when I had to like take off my coat because I was fucking melting. Like once the wind hits the sweat and gets like real cold, it's not fun. This much sweat was worth at least half a mile run, not to mention all the scares he had experienced throughout the night.
でもよかった。
I mean, half a mile run's not that much. That's like, you might get a little moisture on the forehead, but he felt a wave of relief. But not at the thought of Aoko destroying the snark in this nightmarish park. He was simply happy that he could repay a bit of his debt from the House of Mirrors. Oh, now the signal? A blue bullet rose from the plaza where Aoko was located.
合図だ。
Sojiro stood up atop the tracks, pulled out the pouch he had stowed in his pocket, and tossed it forward. Without any regard for his questionable footing, he gave it a mighty overarm pitch. Small pouch drew a parabolic curve in Aoko's direction, quickly becoming untied in midair. I mean, I know hair has magic in it, that's a Nasuverse thing, but what's the game plan here? Inside the bag was the lock of her hair and a small stone weight.
高いところから風に乗せてくれれば
I was about to say, you
あとは
fucking
何と
threw
かする
a
から
bag of hair pretty far. Ako had said, but it was Sojiro's effort that had set the plan into motion. The tuft of hair remained airborne, drifting as it watched over its owner. Sojiro's job was done. He's remained concerned. He remained concerned about the egg hovering over him, but there was nothing he could do about it. I can't trust the sentences. There's too many typos. I don't know what's coming next, if it's actually proper grammar. Sojiro breathed a sigh of relief and leaned forward to watch the rest of the plan unfold. But then,
Mumu?
in the corner of his eye, thought he spotted something familiar approaching Aoko. Something or someone. Oh god, my neck hurts. I fucking hit my head pretty good at work the other day.
ルート
I was crawling on a catwalk, about to go through like the access door, and I thought I was ducked down far enough, but I wasn't. But I was wearing my bump cap. It's not a hard hat. It's just like a baseball cap with like a plastic insert. So the bill was like covering my eyes because I was like hunched down forward. I thought it was clear to go through the door, so I was going at a good pace and just fucking smacked my head right on the corner, completely like compressed my neck and like rattled my teeth because my jaw like slammed shut at a weird angle. So now my neck hurts like a motherfucker, but I've been living off ibuprofen, which helps for the most part, but you know, hunched over my microphone like a shrimp and talking ain't doing me any favors right now. Yo, when are we gonna get that Fate Stay Night remake? Now that we got the Tsukihime remake, and you know,
ディレクト
I'm just saying,
一層
just saying,
二層
man.
予備に三層
I plan to get to Tsukihime eventually. What did you say? Tsukihime eventually. Whenever the Far Side routes get translated, so that way I can do it all in one go.
魔力提供体現に固定循環よし射角よし術式安定大まかよし
Pattern began to carve itself into the brick street, the casting of an unprecedented incantation with unprecedented range. Keeping the rising tension contained within her crest, the fledgling mage snapped her fingers.
決めたツアープランスターマイン
She kneeled at the center of the formula and raised her head to the night sky. Not even a glimpse of the transmogrified fantasy land around her entered her vision now. Only one thing, one untouchable thing, was reflected in her blue eyes.
実はずっと気になっていたことが
This is how their conversation started a few minutes prior. Sojiro began with a simple statement of fact. In truth, it really was the simplest of discrepancies. Between the reality of an hour ago and the illusion of the present, a difference both infinitesimal and infinite at the same time.
雲があったから勘違いしたんだろうけど
Oh, what, the moon? Oh yeah, it had been a moonless night, hadn't it? Something hiding in plain sight. Something both seemingly impossible in reality and unusual given its location. This amusement park where every paradigm had shifted, something was brazenly flaunting its normalcy. Yeah, it
今夜
had
は
been.
新月なんだ青崎
Yeah.
思えば
God,
初
I
め
can't
からそ
remember
の
if
形だ
I
ったもん
brought
ね
that up. I remember them talking at least once about the bright moonlight, and I think I brought up, like, wasn't it supposed to be, like, a new moon a couple days ago? What moonlight they talking about? Or maybe I just thought that. I don't know. It's been, like, not a week. It's been, like, 3-4 days since I recorded, and I probably brought that up a part before that, so maybe close to a week. Or maybe I'm just talking to my ass because I want to seem like I'm smart to you guys, because, you know, I just want friends. The distance from the Earth to the Moon was 238,900 miles. Did you know if you stacked every elephant on Earth on its way to the moon, they would all die? It was truly identical to the actual moon, and the monster indeed lived up to its eerie reputation. A distance that far would mean it would have no need to hide its form. It could flaunt its true form in front of all. But due to the fact that it was hiding its true form, it meant it must have been within reach. That monster's camouflage implied that it sat within the reach of human hands.
こっちの最大射程はよくて600ってところだけど。
At this point, it was time to give it all she had. Drawing on the energy surging throughout the park, she extended her firing arm. A blue firework launched into the air. Looking up at her hair dancing in the wind above, Aoko reached up her right hand as if she could catch the night sky. The mage's own body made for a perfect catalyst. And for a female mage, the hair she had grown out over many years had a particularly valuable and powerful source of fuel. To use it, all she had to do was apply her will. She locked her fingers on both her hands together and shouted.
三層展開全術式連結起動
Ooh, neat! She hurled forth a clear challenge to bind the moon to herself. The mist began to whirl into a vortex. The monster high above bore its fangs at the sight of the blue spell that appeared in midair.
見抜かれたです
By the time Alice had noticed the change, the hostility between Aoko and the snark was palpable.
そうなら青子の勝ちよすぐに戻りなさい確かに雨雲を消したのはヒントの上げすぎだけどそれぐらいは多めに見てスナーク
Fog continued to thicken with no sign of abating. The moon that floated in the night sky could not pardon such an insolent mage. As if the Lord of the Night would bow down to such impudence, there was no staying its wrath at a challenge so flagrant.
スナーク
The robin swooped in to give its report, but Alice waved it away. Her gaze was fixed on the transforming golden moon. Stone giant? Shoot the moon? Her calls of restraint did not reach it. Oh god, what was that Yu-Gi-Oh card called? You know the one. From when he's on he's on the Duelist Island and he's fighting the sea guy, and he breaks the rules by loading his like stone giant on Catapult Turtle, and he's like, shoot the moon to destroy the stage effect, drop the water monster's attack and defense, so that way he can attack him and do damage to his opponent's life points and win. Man, Yugi just fucking cheated in the Duelist Island arc, didn't he? Like, a lot. This fairytale monster was beholden to nobody, and would have no qualms at unleashing its vast might upon its puny prey. I used to have all of the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! On VHS because I would record them before I would go to school, so I just ended up with, like, fucking 60 VHS tapes. The core of her magic bullet howled. The magic circuits within her body spun. Aoko fed the magical energy, scorching her nerves with imaginary flame. She was linked to the formula inscribed on the ground. The spell was read and executed the same as it always was, but its output was beyond reckoning. With this much firepower, even this mundane process would invite injury upon its caster. It was enough to burn up the nerves that were acting as the barrel.
でもいける
The imaginary heat reached a terrifying temperature. Aoko trembled at this endless feeling, but would have to grin and bear it lest their efforts come to naught. Aoko could no longer move. Yeah, she fucking cast her ley lines, and now she won't move, and she'll need to have a fucking white mage cast rescue on her. Otherwise, she's gonna get hit by the AoE. What was I talking about? When she learned the Snark's true form from Sojiro, she gave up on any superiority a movable turret offered, instead opting to become a stationary cannon. That was the only way she could reach it. It was impossible to hunt the snark unless she anchored her crest to this location and angle. At the same time, this action revealed that she was out of options. Once the fuse was lit, she would have no choice but to fight to the bitter end. Aku took a deep breath. This was the way she wanted it. Her preparations were complete. She would be able to deliver this maelstrom of magical energy directly to the moon, like a rocket payload. The third layer floating in midair served as the cannon's muzzle and sight. It would fire the magical energy once it reached criticality, and it allowed Aoko to adjust the angle of fire. The moon became warped within her scope. As Aoko charged her magical energy, the ploy displayed its golden form as if to mock her. Come, worship the heavens, powerless scion of an innocent bloodline. For there was, point among the otherworldly sky, a mystical visage obfuscated by jade mists and azure clouds. So many words in that sentence. Called the greatest treasure known to the world of magecraft, a rarity more valuable than an entire kingdom. Crown Phantasm. That's a new one. At least to me. Obviously, Noble Phantasm, Broken Phantasm, Marble Phantasm. Set apart from the very beginning, the world's greatest fabrication. Her instinct screamed at her to delay no further. This fairytale monster was the greatest of its kind. Its true form was about to be exposed. Its open hostility indicated that it was making preparations for a counterattack. They just need to have a DBZ fucking laser battle. She had to shoot it down first. Magical energy was at 80%. The formula was operating normally. All that was left was to pull the trigger, but the calm voice inside her head asked if it was really okay. She had one shot at this, and there's no going back. It was a battle of precision with no room for miscalculations. Even a tenth of a second of hesitation would tip the scales. Was she ready for the pain? Was she ready to deal with the fallout as she missed? Could she really even take down the moon with such a tiny bullet in the first place? Oh yeah, that's the way we do it here. Her eyes, fixed upon the moon, were filled with determination, and an awareness that the moment she fired, an intense recoil would overwhelm her entire body. She shouted. With every ounce of spirit she possessed, she fired her ultra-long-range projectile into the sky. The third layer embraced the magic bullet fired from the surface of the earth. The crest, an extension of Aoko's self, unleashed light to pierce the moon. However, that's cheating. An enormous blue canopy pulverized the beam. It returned the ether, that 3,000-degree flame, to nothing as it came in contact with the bullet. The recoil of the grand magecraft literally boiled her blood. Her body couldn't handle it. Her heart stopped. Her brain went numb from the pain and impact. Her nerves petrified from end to end. Her magic crest revived them all by force. Even though her vision had gone white, she could still see it. Swallowing the blood in her mouth, Aoko looked up with a scowl. There it was, an enormous shield of ice and a sneering, deformed skull. Oh yeah, it is a skull. It's upside down.
それとも早すぎた。盾を作られる前に撃てばよかった。それとも正面からじゃ無謀すぎた。どっちでもいい。一層、二層、再起動。急いで。
Are you gonna go for a follow-up? There's no time to think or hesitate. Magical energy throughout the park began to gather. Alko knelt. Across from the tyrannical face of the moon, Alko intuited that the ice had not yet fully formed. Flat Snark still hadn't reached its full strength. Which was exactly why. Now or never. By accelerating the spell, Alko had damaged her own body. Alko sat up and braced herself with the pain caused by the load placed on the formula after linking with the snark. All she could do was endure it. All because... I just gotta curve the shot. Alko had gotten a read on the relative strengths. Even if its volume of magical energy was identical, Snark's form, its mystic, was in a different league. Even if Alko changed her energy to her absolute limit, charged her energy to her absolute limit, she would barely make a dent in that ice wall. Meaning, if the Snark gathered as much energy as it could, there was nothing she could do to prevent her annihilation. She loaded her next shot. She issued orders to the floating third layer. Ignoring the toll on her body, she began to accelerate the first layer formula. The role of her right-hand single layer was to absorb and store the surrounding magical energy. The thick fog that drifted through the park was an ancient ether spewed out by Flat Snark's own body, and Alko could pour it into her formula. Raw energy's raw energy, baby. Alko's body, which had integrated with the formula, took on an amount of magical energy that far surpassed its maximum capacity. It seethed in agony. Or rather, it trembled in delight. For a mage, magical energy was propellant to reach the realm of mystics. The expansion of internal time, the liquefaction of the self, the release from the physical. What one might call a near-death experience. Alko stood face to face with reality on that boundary between it and such concepts. And that reality was here to break her will. To any bystander, the gap between them would be plain to see. Gun barrel named Alko Aozaki, she had not a chance to chip away that lump of ice. That's what's called magic, baby! She accelerated the spell further. The skull grinned. That ice was no shield. It was something to be used to crush mages who did not know their place. The moon laughed as it prepared to crush not just Alko, but the boy atop the roller coaster, as well as the park in its entirety. Yo, Flat Snark kinda fucking sucks. Her circuits were on the verge of going critical. Her body had been charged with a scorching power supply from her fingertips to her eyeballs. She would see it. She would see to it that the bullet fired. That the Magecraft formula would be strengthened as quickly as her nerve's transmission speed would allow. A single attack was not enough. There was no way to shoot it from its flank. Which meant there was only one solution. Yep, just gotta punch right through the fucking shield. The third layer began to transform. It switched from direct to alternating currents. The spell's supposed strong point was its ability to adjust its trajectory mid-flight. But right now, all she wanted was numbers. I got her sneeze. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, add some rotation. A drill. A blue sun shined down upon the amusement park. Beams of light at maximum output streaked forth to pierce the golden moon. They do be rotating. Maybe? It looked like there was a bit of a twist. Holding down the trigger, she continued to fire, taking in energy ad infinitum. Or infinitum? Again, syllables. Blue flame shot forth at critical level, but the ice would neither melt nor mar. No amount of sheer heat could make a dent in something formed from such a colossal amount of magical energy. The toll on her circuits sent them berserk, and blood began to run free. The battle had become a tussle over the magical energy that filled the park. From the very beginning, this had been the Snark's home turf. The Snark had control over at least 80% of the space, while Uggo had 20 at best. The castle of ice descended as if to call the match. Yeah, screaming makes you stronger. All she could do was delay the inevitable. She knew that she had been backed into a wall. Right now, the only thing she could do was to keep firing. Then again, perhaps not. There was another option. If she converted all her magical energy into defense, there was a tiny chance. No. Not tiny. A great possibility, in fact, that she could save just her. Clinging to that broken hope, Uggo continued to rotate her circuits. Time seemed to stop at the magical energy overdose. A second of intense pain lasted an eternity. Then, amidst everything, something approached one step at a time. Something from among the park's shadows. Something. She felt goosebumps from head to toe. The issue was no longer the ice overhead. In the midst of the stillness, the Red Death drew closer, step by ominous step. Her circuits in her mind began to rupture out of terror. The composition of her formula and soul began to rip apart. There it was, just behind her. Its footsteps came to a halt. It reached around and cupped her face in its blood-stained hands. Guess who?
Konnichiwa.
Well, at least it's polite. Oh no, that's her entire brain! No! Not her bean-sized brain overheating. She wanted to scream with all her might. No, it's the mask, but it looked like it was in her head. This is it. Nothing matters. I couldn't care less. Run or don't run, it doesn't matter. Quit hiding and reveal yourself. Persona? Use whatever you can and show no mercy. And that was it. She had one final card to play. A miracle that would treat the ice like nothing more than a toy, gifted to her as a mere amusement. That was the Red Death had come... What? That was what the Red Death had come to kill. Damn, I flubbed a good line. What a fucking shame. Feel free to dislike me and unsubscribe and report my channel. Please don't do that. Using it would spell ruin. Not using it would mean death by ice. But why would Aoko hesitate? There was no conditioning her. What? There were no conditions limiting her. There'd be no price to pay by employing it here. She simply would cease to be herself. Very Heaven's Feel moment. That was all. Humans love to exist in areas of gray. Dozens of electrical impulses disconnected in the brain every minute. Nothing lasts forever, not even oneself. It was not anything particularly worthy of disdain. It's not even anything remarkably worthy of being called taboo. What escaped her lips now was rage. Bewilderment from the red silhouette. The girl let out an inaudible scream. Could true magic truly be her savior? What an opportunistic load of bull. After all, to begin with, yeah, you know, being able to cast fucking magic missile and true magic are pretty far apart. Indeed, Akko was still in the dark when it came to that magic, whatever it was. Capital M. Oh. Well, that's not good. Seeing this, Dumpty? At least Sudra has a friend now. He can hang out with Scratchy Dumpty. She woke from her more momentary hallucination. The very illusion her breaking soul had shown her. Whining had the opposite effect on her. Her pride was now ablaze. Sudra was right. Her opponent had put her in check. But she had done the same to it. It was clear why she was losing. So now all she needed was a counterplan, well within her abilities. No matter the odds, she was not one to give up without giving it one last shot. Her numbed fingers clenched into a tight fist. She was betting against the house. An unreasonable gamble that should have made her question her sanity. If her first step was off by an inch, her body would be instantly vaporized. But she knew a boy who never fled. She knew of a steadfast courage that could shine its light, no matter how small, through any desperate situation. Yes. There's more than just herself to be concerned about. If that ice fell, it would mean the destruction of the park in its entirety. Everything he had achieved, everything he had risked and dared and happily put his life on the line for would all be for naught. Yeah, it's just a guy thing. Determination and confidence surged through her like electricity. She was in no mood to be crushed by a giant sheet of ice. If she was going to lose, she'd rather do so in the grandest firework possible. Akko was a sore loser. At this point, she'd rather burn herself to cinders than let it decide her end. She grunted in pain. Energy raged through her body. Her circuits were on the verge of disintegration. Inscribed upon her body, her magic crest, this magecraft given physical form, did not, however, stop with simply skin and flesh. It burrowed into the very marrow of her bones. A playful smile graced her lips. Her sense of reason had been turned upside down by the pain. Oh, so you like it that way, Akko, huh? That was only natural. She had to praise her own body for holding out so long while being pushed beyond its limits. The skull-face noticed the abnormality. She finally recognized the challenge for dominance over this space. It laughed at the conceit it faced. Never did it expect a magician to challenge the great flat snark, lord of vessels over a millennium, and in such an age of decline. tried to catch her breath. She braced herself for the coming pain. She's going to smash that ice to pieces. Both had access to the same amount of magical energy. One of them was greatly outmatched, but
出力装置に差があった。魔力の吸引、方針の規模で負けているのなら、単純な話、私をでかくするだけでいい。
wait, you gonna fucking Ultraman it?
チェンジ、ツアープラン。
And this is Aoko's fucking, oh god, what is it, like fucking Kamen Rider shit? Tokusatsu transformation? The feedback would go beyond anything she had experienced to date. Quite simply, her decision went beyond reckless. She expanded both formulae to maximum size. The first layer would transform into a giant vortex, swallowing up the mist. The second layer would process it from one end and pump it into her, the barrel.
私の想定が甘かった。撃ち落とすなんて半端もいいとこ。この場合、跡形もなく打ち砕くった。
Nuclear option right from the start. Winning the first punch and win so hard they don't fucking dare to stand back up. The primeval magical energy responded in concert with her conviction. It formed the pattern of a writhing serpent. Voiceless magical power flying the banner of revolution. She beckoned the great power of old to feast its eyes upon the land. Her was the first of the trailblazers. The representative of a mankind that knew no fear and would rend all manner of mythic and mystics to naught.
確かにはここまでよ。嘘つきブーちゃま。
Bunjum?
お望み通り、どしをつけて返してあげる。
The newest magician commanded the principles of consumption and extinction. Ooh, capital M. Well, definitely heard that fucking bike go by. An aberrant? An aberrant bullet of light melted through the castle of ice. The barrel was tempered. Control of magical energy was divine. Her veins, totaling 62,000 miles in length and 2.5 times the circumference of the equator, accepted the flow of magical energy with avarice. The subsequent magic bullets swiftly flew straight into the moon. No, 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 no! Death rose to the surface of the moon. A cry of terror, of indignation echoed throughout the abandoned park. Reality was burned into the eyes of this creature of fantasy. As Aoko looked up upon its vain attempt to struggle, she knew she had tasted victory. Victory despite her absolute reckless use of magical energy. The energy scales had been tipped to their breaking points, but nevertheless in her favor. Bullet configuration. Total eclipse converge. Total eclipse, like my book Total Eclipse, that's also on my channel. Feel free to go check out that playlist. Well, that's level 3 super. Shatter, 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 shatter. The skyscraper shattered into atomized dust. The island, its unattainable... what? Unattainability extolled, had swallowed the whole of despair of its many challengers. Swallowed whole the despair of its many challengers, okay. And that which remained of this once proud thing that boasted of its untouchable knowledge? Azure mist bemoaned its demise. The ice canopy in the sky crumbled. The snark-hunting bullet jumped over the moon. Its throes of death sounded like a roaring sea, reverberating across this fairy tale land. battle was over. The thick fog dissipated, and the shattered ice melted away before it hit the ground. A lethal bullet had topped the Night King along with his throne, affording him no time to grieve his loss. The oil of the moon. The untouched, flat snark. The dreamscape that had begun with its resurrection ended with its demise, drawing a close to this nightmare. Oh, so that's why America was the first on the moon. They got oil there. That moon oil. That somehow isn't dinosaur juice.
うわ、さすがに無茶だわ。
Flat on her back, Haoko looked up at the night sky. She lay there perfectly still, not able to move a single finger. When she tried, her whole body screamed out in agony. She was completely empty of magical energy, and her magic crest had come to a halt. She estimated that it would likely require a whole day to recover all her bodily functions. What, do you like the ley line in this town? Can they just fucking bury you in the dirt here too? Just give you a little snorkel? Sadly, all she could really do in that moment was take a breath. At least her chest was swelling with pride. She'd gone toe-to-toe with a fairy tale monster and had emerged victorious. The battlefield conditions had favored her, it was true, but there was no denying that Aoko had come a long way in the last 6 months.
それはそれとして、アリスには謝っとかないと。
Yeah, you kind of smashed one of her familiars.
プロイって壊したらそれっきりだものね。
Flat Snark would never again return to this world. It was an insanely rare item, so invaluable that it would have been impossible to price it for an auction at the Association in London. Aoko had sent Alice's priceless treasure of the Magecraft world to oblivion. Needless to say, things had gotten more than a little out of hand.
まあ、でも。
They had both agreed to the fight, so Alice probably would not complain. Even if she was furious, she'd never be so undignified as to show it. Second Aoko relaxed, her fatigue finally caught up with her. She did everything in her power to fight off the overwhelming drowsiness. Aside from a few minor internal injuries, her body was miraculously unscathed, so much so that she felt she could probably stand up and dust herself off after a bit of rest. You need some Gatorade? Maybe some Pedialyte? The golden moon continued to burn in the sky.
正体は油だものね。そりゃいつまでも燃え。
Aoko's bleary eyes went wide in astonishment. In astonishment. She was still unable to lift a finger.
スナークを見つけたベイカーも最後は一緒に消えるんだっけ？
Again, I'm unfamiliar with the fable of the snark. She sighed in resignation. Aoko accepted that her final stand left her with only 10 seconds before she burned to ash too. Damn, fucking Flat Snark with a dead man switch? Elsewhere, just a short moment prior, buffeted by strong winds atop the roller coaster, Sojiro gravely peered down at the ground.
Mumu?
All he could do was muster a single murmur. You could see Aoko on top of some drawing on the ground, and...
なんだあれ。いくらなんでも頑丈すぎないか。
in the distance, there was something familiar in the direction of the ruined House of Mirrors. Sojiro's job, to throw Aoko's hair from a great height, was complete. While not the most impressive of tasks, it was absolutely a matter of life or death. And to top it all off, just thinking about it, he was going to get back down to the ground was making him dizzy. He had experienced more than enough trouble for one day.
いや、でも。
Yeah, just wait for the fire department to get here and have a firefighter carry you down. Oh, yep, get the instant replay. was flustered as he stood atop the swaying bridge. Yeah, you might want to kneel down for this one, bud. A skull suddenly appeared in the sky above. On the ground, you could see a circling blue light with Aoko Ozaki in the middle of it. And one more thing. A shadow was approaching Aoko that only someone of his vantage point could see. A shadow missing the lower half of its body. The upper half of its body was slowly clawing its way to Aoko. They were still over 600 feet apart. Fortunately for Aoko, she completely failed to notice the approaching form behind.
遠くて見えないけど、あれは
He was sure of what it was now. There was only one thing in the park that would chase Aoko and not him. The puppet.
いや、でも、ほら、あるいは、
Yeah, and just lookalikes.
ただの偶然ではないだろうか。
His mind ran in circles. It was a perfectly reasonable reaction. Any grip on reality he might have had was left. Any grip on reality he might have had left was long lost when Aoko started firing beams of light at the monstrous moon. Aoko's merciless fire buffeted the roller coaster like a storm. Just standing on it was almost enough for him to be thrown off and killed. At any rate, Sojiro couldn't fathom the situation. Should he head back to the entrance of the roller coaster and warn Aoko about the incoming threat? No, there's no way he would make it in time. To make matters worse, there was a hoard of bread down there waiting for him. And it may very well have been the case that Aoko was already aware of the puppet and would take care of it as soon as it got closer. And if she was, Sojiro was sure he would only be in the way. You actually gonna say anything or just go and they'll just translate that as butt? Not seem like there was anything he could do to help. And beyond that, Aoko was not the only one in danger. He was in quite the predicament himself. Can't go home again. The road home was never as safe as one thought. It was as true here as it had been in the mountains. The path he was on was no exception. As risky as the ascent had been, it was even more dangerous to go back down. This was no time to be worrying about others. His shaking legs reminded him that only 200 feet separated him from death.
大丈夫。それは分かっている。
And just go down on all fours. His head was pounding. It was reckless and stupid. Having been raised in the mountains, he was more sensitive to danger than anyone raised in the city. Just thinking about what he was about to do made his throat seize up. There's only one thing he could say for sure.
青崎のことだ。あれに絶対気づいていない。
With a sobbing shout, Sojiro started making his way down the 200-foot frame of the roller coaster. Yeah, I was about to say, ain't there like a maintenance walkway? You know, in case anyone gets stuck on the tracks, and yeah. His race towards death accelerated. Never meant to speed up, but the downward slope propelled him forward. Like that race where they, chase a wheel of cheese down a hill, and people just go tumbling. It was too late for any regrets. Now that he was running, he had no choice but to go even faster. Time was not on his side. He would never have made it in time if he hadn't taken the long way. I mean, if he had taken the long way down. Never mind the breadmen crowding the exit of the roller coaster. With the exits blocked, the outcome would be the same whether he went down slowly or quickly. There was no reason to rush to his death as desperately as he did. So what if it was futile? Sojiro cleared the doubts from his mind. Turned his attention to what he could do. Keep his footing and tried to arrive at the bottom as quickly as he could.
間違えるな。今大事なのは間に合うとか助けられるとかそういう結果の話じゃなくて。
He had no idea what impulses were driving his stiff limbs. He just focused on the moment, pushing past the fear and the cold logic. At his core, he was the kind of person that could deal with problems head on. There'd be time to think about the consequences later. But hesitation was not his only obstacle.
こんな時に
Yeah, fuck off, Dumpty. The worst possible hindrance appeared at a time when not focusing on the track would mean certain death. Sojiro sensed something wrong with the egg he had been so studiously observing out of one eye. Something had changed. The very moment he realized it,
よそ見してる場合じゃない
Sojiro stumbled, then instinctively caught himself. It's a miracle he had not fallen. Setting a roller coaster on foot was an act of suicide. The egg stayed right by his side, so close that it was likely to collide with him. Though he was trying as hard as he could not to look at it, he could not help but feel unease as the door-like decoration on the center was gradually opening.
ああもうちくしょうなんだってこんな
Just fucking jump on the egg and let your weight carry you down. You know, just have it slowly float down. He cursed his rotten situation. And yet, he refused to slow down. Ran even faster, glaring at the egg on his side.
本当おかしいこんな状況なのになんで
Well, when it rains, it pours. Sojiro was baffled to find that he was smiling. Perhaps it had something to do with Aoko's charm. Sojiro could not tell one way or the other. He could still feel Aoko's fingers on his skin. The trust and expectation she had placed in him was etched into his heart. But what spurred him on was something entirely different. This all stemmed from a much deeper problem. There was something inside him that he could not understand at the time, but would eventually come to terms with one day.
よし距離は今なら2メートル弱
He carefully judged the distance as he ran down the track of death. But the distance between what? That went without saying. It was the distance between himself and the one thing that could save his life. Making a jump? Told himself he was going to do it over and over like a mantra. Sojiro could not believe himself. What he was about to do was incredibly stupid. What is stupid when smart is not an option?
本当なんでそこまでやるんだ
Cowabunga it is. Amidst it all, he laughed out how pointless such self-reflection was now. Temporary confusion, a psychological thrill ride, both had laid his soul bare. What really mattered? But a simple man gets by without deep thought. Sojiro's primitive mind did not crave success or reward. For him it was simple.
よし
He was doing it because he wanted to, not because he felt obligated to those around him. His desire to live his way was his and his own.
行こ
If the egg had been equipped with a vocal function, he would have gasped in shock at what happened next. The boy, who had only tried to escape up until this point, suddenly shifted his weight. He pointed his feet outward instead of inward. On the edge of one rail, he crouched ever so slightly to maintain momentum and gazed at the floating egg.
うやれる距離的に
Oh,
問題
hey,
がない
was I right? I'm so fucking smart. Oh, yo, fucking Crash Dumpty's bigger than I thought. He soared through the night sky. It was a flight that lasted a mere 1.5 seconds. A cordless bungee jump from 100 feet above ground. His destination? The only thing that would stop his fall. The giant flying egg. Yo, that thing's smooth. You better hope your hands aren't sweaty. He shrieked, this time out of elation, as he desperately clung to the egg's surface. Just earlier, the cold-blooded witch had told him that without fear, the top of a building would feel no different than a balance beam. This from the same witch that would have been left speechless had she witnessed this spectacle. Fearlessness was one thing, recklessness was another. He followed it up with an act that would irritate her for days to come.
頼むぞ頼む。
Clinging to the egg, he shifted his gaze away from it. He felt the rapid descent. Sojiro, focusing his half-shut eyes on the ground, leaped off the egg once they were a few feet away from the ground, and turned back to it, careful to re-establish eye contact. Something so unbelievable, though, to Sojiro. The elevator at the department store and the mysterious floating egg were both just moving objects, virtually indistinguishable from one another.
よし、割れてない。食べ物を粗末にするのは良くないと思う。
I don't know, man, it's looking pretty crackly. He landed near the plaza. The shortcut that almost cost him his life had paid off. Sojiro took off running the second his feet touched the ground. Puppet after Aoko was the only thing on his mind. Paid no mind to the moonlight in the sky. Or the egg. Furious about being used and seconds away from self-destructing and blasting fragments all over the place. That's good soundbite. Ako's dumbfounded expression spurred Sojiro on. The curse was complete. The empty egg began to sing its warning to let him know that there was no escape. Oh, it's a giant fragmentation grenade. How nice. Shrapnel from the egg exploded through the air. The Ode to Queen Alice that Alice had engraved into Dumpty quickly robbed him of his senses.
それはそれとして。
He snapped back to the task at hand and ran over to Aoko, still lying on the ground. His legs ran of their own accord. Though he could not have, though he could not have ever stopped them anyway, since he could no longer feel them.
お前、驚くほどしつこいぞ。
Baby, dodge the lances of light? I mean, you're close, Snark. They do kind of look similar, but, you know, they're not the same. But maybe he'll be satisfied with that. The scrambled murder case. Piles of rubble became flowers of light blooming from the earth. The final curtain drew closed, and the defeated left the battleground. Had Alice Kuonji seen it up close, it would have left her beside herself. The two had escaped by a hair's breadth. The only person in a position to witness this rare mutual destruction was the girl who had been saved from it. The boy who had never stopped running paid it no mind.
死ぬかと思った。
So, what does Ode to Queen Alice do to you exactly, Sojiro? The safety of the girl in his arms meant indefinitely more to him than the miraculous way in which he saved her. The moon did not wait for dawn to set. The ornamentation, texture of this fairytale kingdom faded away. All of the illusions returned to the way they were before. From the ostentatious chords reverberating throughout the streets, to the puppets welcoming their guests. Peace and quiet reigned once more over a forgotten kingdom, never to be awakened again. Out flickered the embers of a late-night dream, even the electric lamps that illuminated the park. Together, they watched it disappear. Sojiro lay on the ground, desperately gasping for air like a fish out of water. The curse of the exploding egg had numbed his pain, and he was understandably exhausted after all that he had experienced. It looked like he could be blown away by the lightest breezes. While Alka was also exhausted, she was still in better shape. Focused on taking deep, even breaths, she was already working to recover her strength.
あのさ、
She addressed Sojiro indifferently as her gaze remained on the amusement park. The abruptness of it was a bit theatrical in nature. She wanted to look at him as she spoke, but her pride was simply too great.
あなた、
Sun sun
なんか
sun,
すごいことしなかった？
which means now we get a little bit of dairy. The moment she had accepted death had seemed like an eternity. She was beside herself in shock at how indifferent she had been as the shards rained down from the moon. But a reassuring voice had snapped her back to reality. Why did he do it? What was he thinking? What moronic things did he have to do to pull it off? She had no answer for those questions, lying on the ground as she was. All she knew was that he had more than made up for his failure in the House of Mirrors and then some in those fateful final moments. She addressed him hoping to find answers, but found herself unable to probe any further. To dig any deeper would feel like defeat, which is why it's so unlike her to ask him in the first place. Lucky for her, Sojiro had neither the capacity nor sensitivity to understand how egocentrical she was being.
すごいって、それは青崎の方だろ。
He stuttered between labored breaths. It was taking him so much effort just to breathe that he could not address her properly. She watched him out of the corner of her eye. Thinking back on it, the boy had performed the same role each time. Each and every time. Did what he could in spite of his fecklessness? Okay, that's a word. It's far more admirable than her nearly suicidal tactics, even if she did defeat her opponent. Did not even recognize how extraordinary his last act of courage was.
提案、あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
At the very least, he had the courage to keep trying whatever he could. The spectator might have viewed him as a supporting actor. His actions were not exactly memorable. You sure about that? But the lead actress he supported did not see it that way.
まあね、認めたくないし、口になんてもっとしたくないけど。
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without him. Such inspired actions were wasted on a supporting role. This guy really pulled off the impossible. So amazing that she wanted to shout out as loud as she possibly could for the whole world to hear.
青崎？
ほんと、人畜無害もどうすぎるとあな
I
た
mean, I would understand if you fucking barfed after all that running you did. All Aoko could do was sigh. How could she not? Even she was forced to admit that the way he snatched her from the jaws of death was dashing.
評価、甘めだけど。
Oh, well, you better start doing some sit-ups then. Maybe take a diet instead of eating out all the time. No, you know, it's good for girls to be a little soft, in my opinion. Truth be told, he was a lunatic for doing what he did. She steadied her breathing and composed herself. She was in bad shape, and she had her pride as a mage to consider, which was why she needed to maintain an air of dignity when making a proclamation.
しずきくん、見逃すのは今日だけって話だったけど、あれ、なしでいいわ。とりあえず、命は助けてあげるから。
Be humbled that I am offering you the position of underling. She hastily extended her right hand. It was either to shake his or to help him up. However, Sojiro did not take her hand, but instead stood up on his own. This night, despite the sheer insanity that he had just experienced, his face had not once looked as incredulous as it did now.
何そのリアクションは。
She stammered, wondering that she had deeply embarrassed herself. Sojour's gaze was fixed upon Aoko. A problem had dawned on Aoko. She thought though she normally hated being stared at, this time she did not mind. Rather, she was enjoying the warmth of his eyes as it felt like it was something she could almost come to appreciate. Oh god, I don't do a good Tojimaru? Fucking Tsukichi, whatever his name is. Don't you get it? This isn't just about friendship. I don't mean he only likes you either. Believe me when I say that Sonoji really... The conversation came rushing back. It's a memory better left forgotten.
いかん、それは違う。
Uh-huh. Pushing Tobimaru's words out of her mind, Aoko turned to Sojiro.
それとこれは別だ
There
か
it
ら。
is.
私はあんたのこととか、ほんとどうでもいいんだから。
Puzzled, Sojiro tilted his head.
さっき嫌いだって言われたけど。
He responded matter-of-factly to her sudden declaration. She certainly had pointed that out, and to his face no less. It had a mere figure of speech that he was not meant to take literally, but now was not the time to belabor the point. It had a mere figure... What? Is there supposed to be a bin in there? It had been merely... What? It had a mere figure of speech that he was not meant to take literally. There's something wrong with that sentence, and I'm not an English teacher, so I won't correct it. I'll just say I don't like the way it sounds.
そうじゃなくて、あなたが私に惚れてても期待しないでって言ってるの。
Yet, belabor she did anyway. Aoko blushed slightly, realizing how insane she was being. Woman moment. She wondered how she ended up in this position. And yet, she knew that she had to get this off her chest. All that was left to do was to politely wait for his response. I cannot date you. Such heartbreakingly painful words were too much for the simple boy to hear. His shoulders slumped as if the world was coming to an end. Or so Aoko thought. On the contrary, Sojiro was sitting there in deep thought.
俺が青崎に惚れて
He's like,
る
am
っ
I?
て
Sojiro murmured the words as if they were a magic spell. She shot right back with the affirmative. After a moment of deep contemplation, the boy turned to the expectant girl and said,
なんで
He had to be joking. But he was not. He was completely serious. He liked her, but he didn't like her. Of course the vice president jumped to conclusions. This boy had no interest in romance. Probably didn't even know what it was. She was incredibly embarrassed by how confused Sojiro still appeared to be. Her rosy complexion spread throughout her entire body. Oh, she's one of those people that, like, gets a full blush. Like, my ears get pretty red, but, like, I don't go full tomato.
そりゃ、こっちが聞きたいわよ。飛び丸の大バカ野郎。
Just like that, she had lost her cool and given in to an unjustifiable outburst. Don't you know the age of the violent tsundere is way fucking past? Well, considering the time period this takes place, she would have been a trailblazer, but, you know, we live in the moment. That is not the zeitgeist. It was time to seal off the area and destroy all evidence. Ako's embarrassment devolved into sheer panic, and her grudge against Tobimaru suddenly manifested as criminal assault. She lashed out with a punch that could have taken down a bird mid-flight. More specifically, it was a brutal right brutal right hook. Oh my god, why'd that die in my throat? Tsubame Gaishi? Punch to the chin? Ako blinked. Her blow had connected with something solid, snapping her out of her reverie. Her temper had lashed out at the completely defenseless Sojiro. It had been a splendid blow with all her weight behind it, knocking him out cold. Ooh, right to the jaw. Sojiro groaned, crumpling to the ground. Her punch finished the job the curse had started. Not for the discomfort on his face, he appeared almost to be sleeping. Aoko convinced herself that he was napping, not concussed.
いっか。予定通りになったものね。
I was pretty worried the other day. I concussed myself when I hit my head, and as I was telling you earlier, like I was kneeling on the ground for like a solid 10 seconds just trying to reorient myself. It had been one jarring blow. And I had a headache for like a couple hours afterwards, but I was fine. The tension in her shoulders eased away as she looked down at Sojiro. A ton had gotten in her way over the course of today, but the day was saved, for now. With nobody left to butt heads, she felt exhausted. She felt exhaustion finally overtaking her.
歩いて帰れるかな、私。
And, well, there should probably still be at least working payphones out front, unless they completely already removed those. Her fatigue was enough to make her complain out loud. When she thought about it, she realized this was the first time she had used up all her magical energy and the first time she had participated in a battle of this scale without any prior preparation. Though in truth,
私一人じゃどっちも相打ちだったっけ?
she felt somewhat proud as she whispered those words. Normally, it was something she would beat herself up over, but instead, she simply shrugged her shoulders with a bitter smile. After all, it was thanks to the person sleeping by her side. Unconscious by her side.
聞こえてないわよね。
As if the knight had swallowed her voice before it reached him, she received no response. Confident, she continued in an even quieter voice.
その、ありがとう。
Only say it when the dude's unconscious with minor brain trauma. Of course, there was no response from Sojiro, and she was not expecting one. Saying it for the record was enough. Yeah, but there's a third party here who might overhear you and use this as ammo against you. Ako watched Sojiro sleep for a while, and pulled something out of her pocket. Got some smelling salts? It was a palm-sized glass bottle her roommate had given her, which she opened with a pop.
でも、それとこれとは別だから。
Leaving behind words colder than a winter chill at night, she called out his name. She barely sensed the bottle moving. As the silhouette of the fallen boy appeared to blur, she got a feeling that the weight of the bottle had increased slightly.
うわ、どうなってんだろうこれ。
Yeah, that's kind of creepy. What appeared to be a human form could clearly be seen inside the glass. Alice Kuonji's tools were mystics that confounded even the most knowledgeable of mages. As soon as Aoko tried to analyze them with logic or reason, she was already out of her depth. Oh no. What's Aoko gonna do with the Sojiro in the jar? Knowing this all too well, Aoko closed the bottle and watched the boy disappear as if by some magic trick.
まったく、こんなの手品じゃなくて魔法だって。
She muttered as she looked into the magical bottle. Its weight had not changed significantly, and she had no idea how it worked. But one thing she did know was that there was a human being inside of it. Its light weight was almost unnerving. Closer to empty air than a human being. It was about as heavy as one would expect if they bottled a summer breeze. Though, it did fit her image of Sojiro perfectly.
アリスの言う通り。
She muttered to no one in particular as she recalled the past.
ほんと、私らしくない。
Getting soft. Aoko wore a bittersweet smile. Her usual moodiness was gone. It was a dangerous world out there. It was good to have someone to keep her on her toes. With a wry chuckle, she flicked the magic bottle with her finger and set off walking. Well, that's one way to carry him home. So, Alice, you gonna fucking show your face, or are you just gonna disappear off into the night and pretend like, oh, well, I better get out of here? She could hear a bell in the distance, signaling the end of the play. An ephemeral dream gave way to reality. In the grand scheme of things, it had been but an instant. As the actors exited stage left, the last of the lights silently flickered out. And so, the long-dead amusement park played its final role as a memory for a boy and a girl. I'm sure the spirit of the amusement park is fine with that. But with that, that is where we're going to end it here for today. Look at that, right on just over an hour and a half. Mwah, perfect timing. So, once again, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I'll see you all next time for the next episode of Mihoyo, where, I don't know if we have any 0.5 chapters, or if we're just going to hop right on into the next part, you know, get our little aftermath, and maybe an awkward breakfast, you know. Hey, Alice, you tried to kill us. You kind of lost control of your familiar there. That was kind of fucking wild, huh? But we'll deal with it, whatever that is, next time. See you guys then. Later. Bye.